Good evening once again, team. Now I'm going to call this little video River Trent Part 2. For those of you that watched the last video that I did on the Trent, stick float fishing, a couple of hours of an evening, there was a part in there where I said, I'm pretty sure that if I came along and fished this peg with a feeder, it'd be a lot more productive. I'd be able to build a swim a little bit quicker. Well, that's what we're going to do on this video. It's been playing on my mind all week. We've had that ridiculous weather that I alluded to on the last video, up to 40 degrees. The county broke the record. It's just been ridiculous. So today's a slight difference. It's the same concept, same dance. Friday night. It's a little bit early. It's 20 to 6, 21 degrees, but it's been quite chilly today. It's been mainly around sort of 15-16 degrees. We've had a little bit of rain at last this morning, not where I live, but in the Newark area where the river is. So slightly different conditions to last week. I'm pretty sure that the rain's done absolutely nothing to the level because it was nowhere near enough. And it's been a little bit chillier in the day, but still confident. I just want to see whether I can prove myself right that fishing a feeder, long tail, give myself a chance of a bonus fish or two, but also I think it would have been a bit quicker targeting those perch, roach, dace. So fingers crossed. We're going to head down to Winthorpe again now and see if we can't get on exactly the same peg that I targeted last Friday night, right next to the A1. So let's head down to the river now and fingers crossed we get it. If not, then we'll try and pitch up somewhere in that region. I'm sure we'll get on somewhere. So let's have a look what's happening. Well, we won't be fishing the peg I expected to. I can't get to it. That work that I pointed out last week has obviously been extended and they blocked it off. Can't get a car through, can't walk around either. So, plan B, I'm going to have to go in the middle of all the barbel anglers. Ugh. Right, as you probably guessed from my tone at the start, I'm not particularly pleased with where I'm fishing. But it is what it is, and as with the rule, as always, location, presentation, feeding. Location-wise, I've chosen here purely and simply because I've got barbel anglers everywhere around me. It's relatively comfortable given the little bit of gear that I've brought with me. And I think the amount of ground bait, the amount of boilies, pellets that these lads feed, it's got to attract a lot of smaller fish. And that's what we're fishing for today. Just like last week, we're looking for roach, dace, perch, skimmers, things like that. So I'm going to have a little bit of a chuck. I've put 3 feederfuls of my ground bait mix in. I made a lovely mix of Teddy Fisher feeder and some roach to darken it down, mix 50-50. And in there, I've got some, I've actually put some micro pellets in, some hemp and halibut pellets, Teddy Fisher micros, just because that's what these are the types of baits that these lads are feeding. There's some dead pinkies in there as well, and I'm simply just going to fish. I've got a pint of bronze maggots with a couple of reds in there. I'm simply going to fish single or double on the hook, and I've also got some worms as well. So just mix it up and see if we can't get ourselves a bit of a bonus fish with a worm on or whatever. So I'm going to get settled now that those 3 feederfuls have been put in. There's not much flow on the inside here because we're starting to hit a bit of a bend. So I've had to cast reasonably far, probably 35-40 metres to get to that flow in the middle. I'm fishing basically the middle of the river to catch a bit of flow. And it's probably, as I said, it's a deep stretch is this anyway. It's probably between 12 and 15 foot deep. I had a plumb around with an 1.5 ounce lead and found a nice, relatively flat spot, weed free. So that's where we're going to target. Hopefully there's not going to be too many boats because it's that boat line really where I'm fishing. So I'm going to get settled, get stuck in, see how we go, then we'll talk about some tactics. So we'll catch up shortly. Right, well, first chuck and we're in, so that's a positive sign. Let's have a look what we've got. Now, that's a nice stamped roach, and that's probably bigger than any roach that I had last week on the stick float. So better fish sitting out in that main flow, scourge you needed, on double maggot. So that is a positive start. Couple more chucks, build the swim, we'll go through tactics. We are third chuck in, and I think I've hooked something half decent. It's a little perch. So 3 chucks, 3 bites. Missed the second one. So what I might do, I'll talk you through the tactics in a second, is I might actually shorten my hook length at this rate. Because if the fish are coming straight to that bait. So let's sort through some gear. Okay, first off, the main kit, a 12-foot feeder rod with a 2-ounce tip. 2 ounce, don't need it in this current at all, but it gives me a little bit of sort of positivity if I do want to start stepping up to heavier gear, fishing for bonus fish, etc. And I can see the bite, so it's no big deal. It's my usual River Trent setup. It's just I could get away with it being lighter with this lack of flow on this bit of a bend. 6-pound mainline, Daiwa sensor, and coming down to the rig, or a 4,000 size reel, coming down to the rig, which is semi-fixed. So I've got a little stop, just like a little bead, just up my main line there, and then I've got a second one 6 inches away. So that rig runs between those 2 stops with a 6-inch sort of bolt rig. Just below that I've got a twizzled boom with, you make a big loop in the line and make 3 smaller loops of 2 inches in between them, and that's about 7 inches long. So a running feeder between 2 stoppers, a large loop with 3 smaller loops in it, and that stops tangling and it creates a bit of a boom and kicks the hook length away from the feeder. And then I've got a metre length hook length of fluorocarbon line. It's a pre-tied Drennan fluorocarbon feeder hook length. It's a size 16 barbed wide gape, and it's 0.15mm or 3.3 pound in old money. That's what I'm starting on. On my side tray, I've got a lot more positive gear. I've got some Guru special feeders. I've got a real short 12-inch hook length, some Drennan red maggot, all pre-tied. I'm not messing about. I might change to one of them shortly if these bites are really, really quick. It looks like from my first couple of casts, they're coming straight to the bait and they're hitting my hook length my hook bait straight away. If I have it even closer to the feeder, that would be even more of a bolt rig effect. Feeder wise, believe it or not, the big mighty powerful Trent with the lack of water and whatnot, that's a 30 gram Preston open-ended feeder, and that's holding bottom more than enough, and it's halfway into that sort of main flow. Now just let that train pass. Double bronze maggot on the hook, and this lovely mix I was talking about of this Teddy Fisher roach and feeder, fairly dry but packed in. And what I would normally do when I'm casting on these big rivers, and there's tons of videos on YouTube that a lot more qualified anglers than me that will talk you through it, probably better than me, but the general rule of thumb is when you cast out, to enable you to get away with the lightest feeder possible, you're going to what's called release a bow in the line. So the feeder's going to hit the bottom, and then we're going to release some line, and it's going to take the pressure off the feeder. It means we can get away with lighter feeders all the time. But what's happening now, and I'll show you, I'm just going to make the cast. What's happening, I'm actually holding it tight and I'm feeling it down. Now we've hit the bottom now, and on the rod length I'm keeping that line tight because the bites are so quick. I don't want to be releasing a bow in the line, I could be missing bites. So basically I'm feeling it down, and there's, you can see the tip is sapping away already. So they're either attacking that feeder or they're attacking my hook bait. So what we're looking for is a positive, really. It's got a slight bend in the tip. What I need to look for is a drop back where they dislodge the feeder off the bottom. The idea then is that the feeder gets moved with the flow and the fish hooks itself. But with this lack of flow, that might not be the case. So by holding a tight line and just feeling that feeder down to the bottom and just watching for those little taps and then looking to get a bite basically on the drop. The feeder's landed on the deck, the flow's grabbing the maggot hook bait and starting to take it downstream, the flow's going left to right, and the fish are obviously attacking that as it's coming down. But like I say, because they're straight on it, it might be that my hook bait is too far away from the feeder that they're attacking. So if I put a shorter 12-inch hook length on, it's a lot more positive, and that might get me a bite straight away. So that's the theory. Another thing as well, again, it's not necessarily correct tonight in this flow, but we're fishing slightly downstream. I've got a big tree across on the far bank that's a shadow, and that's slightly downstream to me. So I'm chucking to the edge of that shadow. I've given myself a marker. Always fish slightly downstream, and when we talk about feeding out bowls and things like that, it's perfect then. But in this instance, there's very, very little flow out there, that 30 gram feeder. If I went any less than that, it'd be silly, because the bait would then start coming out of the feeder on the drop. So I need a bit of weight. But yeah, in terms of holding bottom, 30 grams isn't a problem. What I could do as well, I've got this pint of maggots to play around with. I could put a really short tail on that 12-inch hook length, fish a maggot feeder if they're attacking loose offerings. That's a good sort of chub tactic, but this stretch isn't renowned for chub, it's more bream, barbel. As I said on the last video, very, very little in terms of silverfish action. Now, bait-wise, I say I've got my maggots, I've got my worms, and I've got my ground bait, my traditional baits, with a sprinkling of micros, but I've also brought some soft halibut 6mm pellets, the sort you'd use on a commercial, and some 8mm hard pellets. Some are drilled and some are just sort of standard. There's a couple of krill ones in there as well. So if later on I do fancy upping the ante a little bit with the bait size, I can do that. I have had roach over £1 on this stretch using pellets when I've been fishing for barbel, so that's an option. Now you see, the bait's been there now sort of a couple of minutes. I've not had a bite except for that when it hit the deck, and I probably should have struck. So I think I'm going to have another chuck, just see what goes on, and if the same happens again, and this is the theme, that they're coming straight to the feed, I'm going to shorten that hook length to 12 inches and see what happens. This feels a bit better. Another perch. Should we be brave and swing him in? Yeah, go on. So that took a little while. I didn't get the wraps as it was going down. So it could be roach are active, attacking the feeder, and it's the perch that you give it a minute or two and they pick it up. So I'll have one more chuck on this. I'm still on the 12-inch hook length. Sorry, I'm still on the 1 metre hook length. Another chuck. I'm going to try a piece of worm, because if there's some nice perch out there sitting off, same as last week, the perch sat back beyond the silverfish. Maybe that's happening again. We're feeling that feeder down. It's at the bottom now, and then we're tightening up. There's no chance of that feeder rolling in this current. There's a few taps there again. I think that's them hitting the feeder. We'll just tighten up. And now we're looking for a drop back bite. First chuck on the 12-inch hook length. So with that 6-inch boom, I'm sort of 18 inches away from the feeder now. and positive bite straight away. It feels okay. Feels like another perch maybe. Gotta be careful with these rushes there. There we go. Good stamp as well. These were like them good ones I had on the stick late on last week. In fact, this is probably a wee bit bigger. So, I mean, that is a good sort of 6 ounce, if not half a pound. And that bite was much more positive. So, I had to wait slightly longer. Lovely stuff. I had to wait slightly longer because obviously we're not attracting the fish on the drop. We haven't got that metre of line falling slowly through the water. This is much closer to the feeder. But that was on double maggot as well, no worm. Try a bit of worm now. Try a bit of worm and a red maggot. So that's what I'm looking for. Shorter tail, now you can see, much shorter, much more positive. So we're still on that short hook length. I've moved the beads apart again, little tap. And I'm still on the ground bait feeder. And I've just started picking up a couple of dace. So there's no rhyme nor reason for the species at the minute. I've got my theories. I'm saying maybe those perch are a little bit further down, same as last week, sitting off of the shoal of the roach and dace and whatnot. That's a little touch. But I'm actually not sure. So what's this? Is a perch. Pike chasing it in then. Lucky perch. So slightly smaller stamp and double red maggot. I think what I might do, I'm waiting a bit long for bites now, is I'm going to pop a maggot feeder on and I'm going to try with that short hook length to start and then pop that long one on again and look for bites on the drop and cast a lot more regular. So let's do that, let's change tactics and see if that makes a difference. Right, we're up and running with this maggot feeder. Why? What are we doing? Why are we changing to this maggot feeder? Well, we're sort of replicating that stick float fishing. We're loose feeding with just particles, maggots in this instance, through the feeder and trying to draw fish in. That's why we're going to cast a lot more regular now. It's a bit like when we're loose feeding on the stick float, trying to draw fish upstream. Little tap straight away. Tap there then. I missed it, I think so. But that's the principle, getting a bit more loose feeding. And just trying to get a bit of commotion, a bit of competition. Just filling it 3/4 full. Maggots, 30 gram again, it's a Preston's block end feeder. There we go. And tighten down to it. Just wait. I'm only going to give this sort of 10 minutes. And then just go through the card. Might go back to the long hook length, go back to the ground bait feeder. Just trying to build all the time. Right, third chuck on the maggot feeder, and we've got one, but it's not really, we're not really tearing anything up. That's a nice roach. So, no logic to what I'm trying. Sometimes things work, sometimes things don't, but the stamp is much better than down by the bridge last week on the float, that is for sure. A little change of angle for you. Finally hooked something a little bit better on that maggot feeder, on the long tail now. Let's hope the pike doesn't have it. Probably another perch. Let's try and get it out of these weeds. It is a good perch. Yeah, that's the best fish of the session. That's well over a pound. Look at that. It's well down, so he's greedy. Lovely stuff. Let's try that one again. Little nibbles on the drop. It's a bite on the drop, definitely. Dace. And dace is what I'd expect on a maggot feeder with a long tail. So, 8:15. Still on the maggot feeder with a long tail. Not working out as I'd hoped, so I thought it'd be pretty instant bites on the drop. I might be not seeing them. This is where your top feeder anglers work things out really quickly. My mind's whirring as to what the quickest way of catching the fish is. But it's nice. Some chunky ones, a couple of dace, a couple of roach. But I think what I'll do is for that last hour, so give it another 10 minutes or so, is I'll go back onto that ground bait feeder. I feel that it's going to give us a chance of a bonus fish, if there's any bream knocking about, a bit of ground bait on the deck. I might just make one or two of them have a look and get their heads down. Because I'm not too sure whether this is any more productive than when I was using that open end feeder. I can pack the ground bait with maggots, give a similar effect to what I'm doing now. There's a little rattle again. So it's quite hard to distinguish what is a proper bite and what is them hitting the feeder. That this feels like another little perch. Now, the barbel anglers across have just hooked a pike, so the pike are definitely on the feed. I've got to be careful here, especially these weeds knocking about as well. Oh, what is that? That's a dace. It's a lovely stamped dace. If I can keep getting them, then happy days. But as I say, there's no rhyme nor reason. Whatever I do, I catch fish on. Not as quick as I like. So a little bit baffled, but I think now we are 25 past 8. I'm going to do what I can, stick to this ground bait feeder on the long tail, because I think this gives us the best option of a bonus. Perfect. Maybe I should have put that lighter tip on. There we go, we got that one. It's showing itself on the surface, it's asking for a pike to eat it. Another dace. And these are what we would expect fishing this way. And that's gone down it as well. Perfect. And all that tight. Just wind onto it. Rattle, rattle, rattle. Little, definitely nudging that feeder. Dace again. And these are definite dace bites now. Again, they're still attacking that feeder on the way down, I feel. That's a bite. Again, this feels better. I think it's a perch again. Just got to be careful with these weeds close in. Try and get them up and over. Yeah, it's another good perch. Yeah, we got that one. Oh, these are stamp. And it's probably 12 ounce. Beautiful fish, especially in that evening as it's sun's going down, and that clear water as I just lifted it above them weeds. I think putting more worm through the ground bait and just being a bit more aggressive seems to have got these perch knocking about. Let's see if there's any more down there. There we go. Process. Tighten down. Little taps already. They're definitely hitting that feeder. There we go. Right, it's not as That's the last one. Silverfish. We might put a bigger hook on. There we go again. Feels like a perch again. No, what is this? Gone in the reeds. What is a perch? I'll swing that one. Lots of perch in this stretch. And we knew that from last week, didn't we? Right, final throw of the dice. It's now 10 to 9. Last 20 minutes. I said I was going to be a lot more aggressive, so I've put a bigger hook on, size 14 LWG, one of these Guru special feeders, metre long still. One of these here, 0.15, so that's £5 bottom. Full worm on the hook, just to give myself a chance. If I do hook a bream, I'm sure I had to bream before, or these big perch, just to give myself a bit more control. Wait a little bit longer for bites. Let's say full worm on the hook. Probably only 4 or 5 more casts now with more positive hook length on. But intriguing is one word I'd say. I'm sat surrounded by barbel anglers. I knew that them constantly feeding their ground baits and pellets and all the rest of it, these silverfish will be mopping that up. But it's the perch that I wasn't expecting. But I guess where there's small silvers, there's going to be bigger perch. That looks like an interesting bite. Does it miss that? No. Okay. Yeah. So continue. And if we get anything bonus, we'll turn the camera back on. If not, we will get ourselves a little catch shot. I'm fairly certain. Well, I know I've had less fish than last week. Probably had maybe 20, but certainly a bigger stamp. So I'd like to think I've beat last week's stick float effort. Well, that's it. It's 9:15, so I've fished for exactly 2.5 hours. Time to have a little look at what we've caught. Ironically, that bigger hook that I put on at the end didn't work. Oh yeah. So, if I just pop them in here. Oh, there we go. Fruits of our labour, 2.5 hours. Some absolutely stonking perch. That would be the pick of the bunch. That's got to be, a pound or so. So we can pop him back, and then we've got a good, real good stampers. Again, really good size. We've got some nice roach in there. We've got some more chunky perch. I would say there's got to be a good £6, £7 of fish there in just 2.5 hours. Learning points, lots of them. Couldn't work out how to catch them quickly really, whether it was the long tail, short tail, the maggot feeder, the ground bait feeder, but ultimately we was getting indications pretty much every chuck, and we were just ringing the changes and put together a reasonable stamp of fish. If we were to compare it against last week with the stick float, well, it's another world. Those fish are much bigger, but is it because I'm in a wider bit of water? I'm not too sure. But hopefully giving you a few little tips, and thanks for watching.